Okay, it is Wednesday, September the 2nd, and it is 8:32 p.m. Central Standard Time, and welcome to um, Business Law. I'm Professor Richard Wright, and I just want to let you guys know that in answer to some of your questions about week two's assignments, I have them. I've just been dealing with some health issues, but I'm catching up. So I'll have your week two assignments graded before, well, the week is almost over, but by the end of the day tomorrow at the latest. And I'll be working over the weekend, holiday weekend, getting those week threes done for you. So uh, no problem with any of the students as far as assignments concerned. I've got a few messages, so just wondering if I got the assignments. I do have them, so don't worry about that. All right. Um, I do want to remind you, and I think I said this last week, that if in the grade book you see a 0, then that doesn't mean you can't turn in an assignment. So what I always remind students is that every Monday after assignments are due, that's Sunday, I go through and I put zeros in anybody's assignments that are not completed. That doesn't mean that you can't turn them in. You can still turn them in. You might lose points unless there were some extenuating circumstances that take place. And then um, sometimes I forget to override them, and a 0 still shows in there, because what I have to do is I have to do what they call a grade override, and it puts that grade to where it's supposed to be. So wanted to remind you guys of that. So all right, let's go ahead and let me share my screen. All right, so let's see, we're in week 4. So you're preparing an identity theft PowerPoint. Now, this is one of the few times that you will use something other than Word, because it's a PowerPoint. And you're going to make sure you satisfy all of these points. 5 to 7 prevention tips, 6 to 8 resources. Make sure you have citations to provide. You don't have to worry about references, but do have the citations for the sources that you use. And then presentation is a minimum of 12 slides, a minimum of 12 slides, and contain proper organization. So a minimum of 12 slides. That means 12 slides or more, not counting the cover page. But again, you don't have to have references, but just citations. All right. So you're going to define identity theft, describe how this crime is committed, explain why consumers and businesses need to be aware of this, explain the impact, and then discuss what one should do if they become a victim of identity theft. So those are the points. And then 5 to 7 prevention tips, which is easy to come up with for identity theft. And then 6 to 8 resources applicable to identify theft education, along with the APA citations, as I said. Okay, that's the written assignment for the week. And then we come down here. We're continuing to build on the rough draft. And then week 4, opening doors to your business, correctly identifies the preferred method for structuring the business, provide sufficient reasoning as to the selection, and proper APA formatting with citation references. So here's what you need to be aware is that you're not working on that contract from week 3. So that's why I can get that to you during week 4, and you will have plenty of time to get ready, because week 5 is when the final contract is due. Okay. All right. We go on to let's go into the calendar first. Okay. And there it goes. So you can see where we are. We're in September. This is your live lecture. Your reading assignment was given on Monday. Then your initial post, dreaming of your business organization, which many of you done pretty well. That was due yesterday. And then Saturday, your reply post. And then Sunday, your written assignment and course project. And of course, the key phrase. Okay. Be aware that after next week, your assignments that are due this week coming up, you only have one more Sunday for week 5 assignments. And then the course ends on the 18th. All right. So it doesn't end the 19th and it doesn't end the 20th. A lot of people mess up that. If your assignments are not turned in by the 18th, then I will not be able to grade them. If it's 1 minute past 11:59, if it says 12 a.m., it's the 19th, can't count it. I cannot count it. So be aware of that. Also, at the end of this week, week 4 assignments, you will not be able to turn in weeks 1, 2, or 3. Now, even if you turn in weeks 1, 2, or 3, excuse me a second here. That clears that out. And if you turn in weeks 1, 2, and 3, you still could lose points unless there's some extenuating circumstances. And I have to know about them. I need to know about them. Actually, I need to know about them as soon as it happens. And that's your calendar. All right. Let's go back to the course home. And let's shut down the course tools there. Here we go. So let's take a look at our announcement for this week. Regulations, agencies, and partnerships will be dealt with. Chapters 12 and 13 of the textbook. Regulations, agencies, partnerships, business organization advantages, disadvantages, and then there's some flashcards that I'll conclude with, and you can go through those yourself, but I'll go through a couple of them with you. Discussion assignment, as I mentioned earlier, dreaming of your business organization. Again, as I remind you again, the initial post was due last night on the 1st of September, and the reply post is due this Saturday by 11:59 p.m. I remind you that your written assignment, identity theft PowerPoint, and the course project, opening the doors to your business. Pay close attention to the rubrics. That's what I always remind students. And then complete the mid-quarter survey. And you know what adversity is the springboard to success is all about, where I tell you that I'm familiar with challenges to let you know that I have empathy in terms of helping my students out. But I gotta know. I gotta know. If I don't know, I can't. All right. So if you don't tell me, then I can't help you. So you got to reach out to me. All right, so now we're crossing over into what we call the second half of the course. And so here's your identity theft PowerPoint. You already know about what you have to do, because I discussed that a few minutes ago, but these are those same points once again. A minimum of 12 slides I will count, which includes the title slide and reference slide at the conclusion with all of your citations. Now, be aware of the fact that, again, I'm not going to be so dogmatic on reference slide. If you put it in there, that's fine, but I'm not going to count it as one of the 12. I'm not going to count the cover page. So be aware of that. This might make you think that, but I just explained to you that I want the content of the material. All right. But be sure to provide citations for the information you use throughout the presentation. And then it says you'll need to provide research. And that's very important. Very important. Be as creative as you want. Use charts, pictures, embedded videos. Just make sure that they match what you do. And then it says general PowerPoint tips. You would probably know more about this than I do. I always tell my team that if we have to do a presentation, I'm not the PowerPoint person. I've never been good at them. And so most students are pretty good at it. So tells you some things to kind of avoid here. And the more color, the better. Bright colors make it easier. Dark colors make it pretty hard. So use no more than 4 colors on one chart. And make sure that you're not really you're copying materials from other sources. You can take information from other sources, but please give citations as to where you got that information. Okay, very important. Any questions about the PowerPoint? Okay, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. And most of you guys have done PowerPoints. Have you ever done PowerPoints before? Yeah. As I said, most students, but I haven't done that well. I've done some, but I'm like, as they say, I could go to PowerPoint school and start at kindergarten. No, forget that. Preschool. That's how elementary I am at putting together PowerPoints. They're great tools, though. All right. So everybody's straight on that. The discussion. Um, you're going to think about how operating your business, what type of business you want, LLC, LLP, sub S or S corporation, corporation. Um, I noticed that last time I did this class that several people picked sole proprietorship. So far, I didn't see anybody pick that. And when they do, I kind of remind them why sometimes you want to stay away from it. And there are people who really believe, though, that when there's only one person, that there's got to be a sole proprietorship. No, you don't. You can incorporate your own name. When I was practicing law early on, it didn't have that, but later on, and even today now, almost every lawyer I know, every accountant I know, they set themselves up with a LLC, LLP, or sub S corporation. That if you research that, that has to do with some tax benefits. Anyway, in your book, it tells you the information about those kinds of things there. So that was due initial post last night, and the reply post due Saturday. So then your course project. opening the doors to your business. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this scenario and write a 1 to 2 page paper, double space, properly APA formatted, and then at cover page Roman 12, and references. So after you negotiated with Mr. Barker, you realize this could be a good business. It says your mother's been bugging you for months to get rid of all the other children's meals, toys that you've collected over the years. And with your estimate, you probably have over 10,000 worth of toys. For this part of the project, you're going to write about starting your own business, and you're going to cover all of the issues that are involved with the best fits, what's the reasons why, and it almost matches what you're doing with the um, discussion post, except you're elaborating it more. Remember, 1 to 2 pages. See, it says double space, but I always remind people when it's APA there, generally we're talking about double space and not single space. Any questions about the course project? All right. And then, of course, your live classroom information that you're given here. All right, so let's get into talking about the topics for the night. So we're going to deal with the regulations of agencies and partnerships. And then we're going to just take a look at these two activities here. And then we will call it a day. So as you should know, that in every business entity, or there's usually some type of agency that is going to regulate the operation of your business. And so these agencies are determined whether, dealing with the federal, state, local, even local agencies. And then we're going to deal with the type of entities that you can have, and um, delegation of duties for parties in business. So businesses are usually regulated by agencies such as the type of business you have. So if you have a restaurant, then you're going to deal with food, FDA. If you are dealing with almost anything, you're going to deal with the good old infernal revenue, as somebody calls it, but it's the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, particularly if you are dealing with accounting or numbers or things like that, but you're going to still have to deal with them anyway. EPA, if you're having the type of business that involves anything that has to do with the water or the air, if you're dealing with alcohol or soda or something like that, you're going to deal with the agencies that have, and these are what we call administrative agencies. And what they do is they operate within themselves, and they have regulations that you must abide by. There's also requirements for licensing for operating your businesses as well. Something to consider from the assignment that you just have to do tonight with the project is that what kind of license. For example, obviously if you have a law firm and you're lawyers, you got to have a law license. Okay, every lawyer has to have a law license. And accounting firms, you don't necessarily have to have CPAs, but you usually have CPAs that are over it. And if you, for example, have a company that deals with um, um, drugs, like for example, take a big chain like a CVS or a Walgreens or one of those companies that they will have pharmacists, individuals who are licensed, and they are regulated by the governmental agencies within their state jurisdiction, and usually the federal government has something to do about that. So there are these regulations are important, and usually you kind of leave those to the lawyers, but you might have a working knowledge of what the regulations are that you might have to abide by. But the regulations are to keep things in order so that the public as well as the business is protected, but the public on a big side point because of the fact they want to make sure that individuals who are offering certain services are qualified. Therefore, they'll require tests like the bar exam, and then accountants have, the CPAs have their exam, and other professions have exams. And so those agencies are operated. I got a friend who's a PD, and that's a private detective, and he had to go through not only background stuff, but he had to also go through and take a test to become a private detective as well in the state of Illinois here as well. Of course, he had to qualify to carry a firearm and all of those things. So what is an agency? What is an agency? Agency is when parties come together to operate and doing business. As it says here, one of the good examples that brings it on home is when a buyer of a house gets an agent to sell their home, or the buyer um, enlists an agent to represent them. There are buyer agents and there are seller agents now. Once upon a time, it was just one agent. And then also in our jurisdiction here, talking about agents, those individuals are required to get licensing, and they're held responsible under the regulations for the state of Illinois if they have a license. And we no longer have straight agents. Everybody's a broker. Even the real estate salesperson is a broker. And so that's pretty much the direction that a lot of them are going in to make it more professional. And so the agency, what it does is you appoint someone to carry out something in your name. So we do what we call delegate authority, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And if you get a chance to do be sure to read about this, the fiduciary law. Now, what is a fiduciary? A fiduciary is someone who is entrusted with the duties or responsibilities on behalf of what we call the principal. So usually you have what we call the principal and the agent. The principal is the person who hires the person, and the agent is the one who operates in their name or on their behalf. And you can find that agency and principal, we deal with this heavily on the bar exam, involves where someone is appointed to do something for you. It could be as simple as a person going to pick up something from the store for you, and that particular person is the agent of the person that they're getting the stuff for. Employer-employee relationships create agency principal relationships, where the employee is the agent that carries out what the principal, the company or employer require or want to be carried out. And there are legal issues that can hold the agent I mean, the principal responsible for the performance of the agent. Um, you also have, for example, like we've all dealt with insurance, and let's talk about life insurance. You have a person who is an agent. That person can bind the company in a way by how they present the documents to you. And of course, though, with life insurance, it's not really that difficult because it's going to be based upon what's in the document. And then it's a pretty sensitive document they hand you, and you'll go through, and then you have to answer the questions and stuff like that. But the thing that I'm saying to you, let's say, for example, if you tell the agent that you had a certain kind of illness, and the agent says, well, if you do this, if we put that on there, we're not going to be able to get this policy through. But let's say the agent knows and does not. That's not a good move, but I'm giving you an example. Then if you, for example, die from that, then in that particular instance, it would be the burden on the heirs to be able to prove that an individual did not lie and that the agent just ignored it. Now, here's a good example of it. The weight size of a person can sometimes contribute to the health of that individual. That's why they'll have that in there. And let's say if the agent um, doesn't put the correct weight, they put maybe you weigh 250 and they put in 200, and you find yourself passing away shortly after that and you weigh 250. Well, the course though, you know what insurance companies do though now to try to cover themselves with that. Do you know what they do in most cases? They'll require something. And what is that? Yeah, I know, but they'll require something else to make sure that that information is accurate, the weight and stuff like that. They'll make you take a physical. And with the physical, then there's a third party that's hired that comes out, and they'll sometimes draw blood, they'll put you on a scale, they'll do all kinds of stuff. Because a lot of times people's IDs have different weight sizes, like mine does, than what I actually am. Okay. So anyway, the point I'm saying is that the agent can bind the principal by things that they do. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about partnerships themselves. Now, a partnership is written or oral, or it could be expressed or implied, where the parties come together for a venture. Now, there are a bunch of them. And so I'm gonna kind of like stick with what they have here because this is the parameter that I want you to stay with. Because in many jurisdictions, uh, sometimes there are different ways that they operate. So let's talk about first a general partnership. Now, there is what we call the Uniform Partnership Act, and each state has their own version of what they took out of the Uniform Partnership Act. Um, and all jurisdictions pretty much follow the same, except Louisiana. The, do you know there's a difference in the laws of Louisiana than there are in most other states? Do you know why that is? You probably don't, but I'm gonna just see if you know. Do you have an idea? Well, I'll tell you. The state of Louisiana operates on what we call the Napoleonic Code, which is French. If you notice, everything is French, right? In Louisiana, and but the other jurisdictions around the country take the law from England and Great Britain. That's the difference there. And so Louisiana has a little difference. Okay, it says the Uniform Partnership Act adopted in all states except Louisiana. A general partnership basically is an association of two. It has to be two. You cannot be in partnership with yourself. That's paranoia and schizophrenic, but it's not in reality a thing you can do. A partnership is an association of two or more who come together and to run a business for profit. That's a general partnership. Okay, and those partners, if you were to take a look at the Uniform Partnership Act, you will discover that there's equal liability, or either the liability is the same. Now, the one thing with a partnership that generally, I mean, a general partnership is that it does not protect the personal assets of the partners. Okay, if it's a general partnership, it is almost like a sole proprietorship. However, on the tax aspects of it, it's different. It operates a little differently. But that's just loosely what I'm telling you. So for all your purposes, without trying to remember all the stuff involved with this, trust me, and what you read in your chapter about partnerships, you generally will discover that it comes down to equal liability, not being able to protect your personal assets. And what they do is they can take out policies and things like that to protect the company. And, you know, the partnership itself will take out insurance policies on the partners who operate and run the business. And they find themselves equally responsible for whatever happens. So if something goes wrong, everybody is, and it's not up to their investment, it's equally, whatever the amount is divided between the partners themselves. That's generally. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but I won't elaborate on that too much. Limited partnerships, or on the other hand, where, notice it's the same thing, because it's a partnership, two or more come together under the state's what they call the limited partnership statute. Now, in the limited partnership, there's what we call general partners and limited partners. Now, general partners fit within what I just described in general partnerships. Limited partners, usually their liability is limited to their investment. However, limited partners are not involved with the day-to-day operation of the partnership. They receive the benefits, but again, usually their losses are limited to their investment, which is a good reason why people enter limited partnerships. But you'd have to look at the state that you're in to see what it says, and you'll see that it's pretty uniform, except with our good old friends at Louisiana. And so when you're setting up an entity, if it's if you're going to be, you know, investing money and you want to limit your liability, I mean, we already know that corporations, limited corporations, subchapter S corporations give limited liability. You're aware of that, right? Okay, so that's a benefit. And also for taxation, then the taxes of the corporation are not the same as individual taxes. But with a limited partnership, the individuals, they still can be taxed upon the income that they receive there. And again, it's called limited because it's limited by the activity of the partner, and it's also limited by the amount of damage they can generally suffer. Now, there are different things that can be done. Yeah, so if I'm referring to, just for a minute, corporations, there's a way to get to the personal assets of an individual who holds shares in the corporation. Does anybody know what they call that? You ever heard the term piercing the corporate veil? You ever heard that before? Well, what that means is this. If a corporation is doing something that violates the rules of the corporation or the statute, then a person can basically ignore the corporation and go after the individual's personal assets as well. Um, and one of the things that allows piercing the corporate veil is commingling of funds from your private to the corporation. Um, Another common way is if there's some fraud in the corporation and the corporation is just a front, then you can pierce that corporate veil, and then it's as if there never was a corporation. Anyway, that's in addition to what we're talking about here. But I want to leave you with understanding that with the Uniform Partnership Act, that's where you'll find the rules for how general partners operate. There is what we call the limited partnership statute, which determines some of the things that I said. Okay. And limited partners means that they are limited in their losses generally, just for your own information, and as well as uh, the benefits that they can receive. All right. Any questions about any of that? Okay, I didn't want to overload you, trust me. Oh, I can go deep into it. It's interesting. When I was teaching this course residentially, when I first came to work for Rasmussen, and I was um, residentially operating, I I found myself in a situation where it was really heavy, and I had to tone it down for the students because the 11-week course was, wow, it was heavily involved. But here they've gotten smart with the 5.5 course. Okay, but the book itself has a lot of good information that you can learn more details about this as well. And as I tell students, use that in terms of finding other sources and the research that you do for preparation of your assignments. All right, so let's before we go to this, I want to go to this, and I want you to see something, and I want you to pay close attention to the things that side by side comparisons of the various entities, and you can uh, see what the advantages are, and you can see how they operate. So let's start with the sole proprietorship. And obviously it's one person on all the assets. So what are the advantages? Advantages is that you're the only boss, you're the owner, you can file taxes on your income taxes, and it allows you to pay less. So you write off your business expenses, so to speak. The disadvantages is that there is no limited liability. So the company, um, the sole responsibility owners for debts, lawsuits, and torts. But what means is that you, as your personal assets, uh, can be seized in the event there's a shortfall in a sole proprietorship. All right. General partnership, we've talked about that, governed by the Uniform Partnership Act, except in Louisiana, and I already told you what that is. The advantages are that partners are able to put their money together to form the partnership. So there's a shared investment, and it can be terminated at any time. And its formation is simple, like the sole proprietorship. The Uniform Partnership Act sets out real simple ways of doing it. Some disadvantages that all partners, as I said, can be defendants in lawsuits. If the partnership did not create a partnership agreement, then they are all equally responsible for the losses of the partnership. So that's one of the further issues that I would throw at you now, since we are at this juncture, is that all partners are equally liable, but you can, in a partnership agreement, limit the liability of an individual, but you're still a general partner. And so the Uniform Partnership Act allows agreements between partners to do that. So that's a good thing. It's not quite the same as when we talk about the next one. The limited partnership is where two or more persons, under the State Limited Partnership Act, operate in business. Advantages is that the general partnership creates equal liability for the debts of a partnership, but the limited partnership limits the amount of debt that the person is to the amount that they've invested. That's what I said earlier. Disadvantages is it can be only formed by complying with the state statutes. So it's almost like a corporation, but it's not quite a corporation. A limited partnership may not participate in the operation of the business. So the limited partner is what some people call a silent partner, and that person is not going to be involved in the business itself, but they're strictly putting their money up, hopefully to make a profit as well. And then, like I said again, usually the statute for the limited partnership limits their liability as well. So a corporation is a legal entity, and it's a person all by itself, okay, where there's shares of stock that are owned by the individuals. And these are some obvious advantages. Limited to the amount of their investment, just like the limited partnership. But there are a lot of individuals where there are different kinds of corporations, depending on the needs of the business. Like I said, they're not-for-profit. My church, for example, is a not-for-profit corporation. And there's what we call closely held corporations. That's where one person can actually hold all of the stock. You'd have to read about that in some of your material. Subchapter S. Subchapter S is actually a tax benefit where you get the benefits of individual tax protection as well as the corporate. And so it's an accounting thing. Whenever I get ready to do sub S's, I talk to my accountants. Disadvantage is that the corporation has unlimited liability for the corporation's obligations. Now, that means that the corporation itself, but not the assets of the individual. Okay, and there's all kinds of steps that you have to go through to dissolve a corporation, and break it up as well. Again, each jurisdiction has different rules for that. So for tax benefits, generally it's the corporation. The limited liability company is kind of a hybrid of this and that. And that's why we call it a hybrid, which provides limited liability for the owner while they are treated like a partner for tax purposes. So it's a tax benefit. It has the same advantages of partnerships. Similar to a sole proprietorship, it can be created with only one person. So that's what we call, you see a LLC, limited liability company, where the person can participate in the everyday management of the business. A lot of law firms are set up under what we call LLCs. Disadvantages are that you are not you are not the right formation if you want to take your business public. In other words, if you want to bring in other parties or offer stock, then you got to do a corporation. And then there are some liabilities that the LLC is a separate legal entity and the members must stay at an arm's length reach with their interactions with the business. That's one of the other disadvantages that can happen in some instances with LLCs. Okay, so those are the various entities, some of the advantages, some of the pros and cons. And, so you can take time to look at those as well while you're doing your research. Okay, so now when we start to talk about agency a little bit, there's a term called actual authority. And if you flip it over, and I told you, I said you can click on this. The authorization is what we call actual authority. Actual authority is the authorization. So you put that, okay. All right. The authorization. Actual authority. Okay, so now put it in no. Agent. An agent. And you flip that over. A person who acts on behalf of another. A person who acts on behalf of another. Have you did what I said, gone to these little flashcards and let it speak? Have you done that, Jeff? Yeah. My phone is talking. My phone's like Alexa. I'm not talking to you, phone, right now. It's like Alexa just butts in. That's actually Bixby. You know about Bixby, right? Uh, okay, that's what happens. Okay, all right. I'm going to turn you off. Saying hi to me. It's like having an extra kid in the room. So. That's funny. So anyway, an agent is one who acts on behalf of another, and it tells you. So then you put that in there. Apparent authority. Now, the definition of apparent authority, it tells you by the name. It appears that you have authority, but look at how it operates. Authority created when a principal holds out an agent as being able to represent the principal. So what the agent is doing a job on behalf of the principal. So therefore, that's what we call apparent authority. In other words, they have to have that in order to do the job. Fiduciary. Fiduciary, we talked about that. One who is, and the reason why that is the case is because you're going to have control over someone else's property and those kinds of things. Okay. And so you could go on and on and on. So you can even put this on what we call an autoplay, with, you know, and if you do that, though, they're going to go faster. joint and several liability. This is something I remember so this kind of stuff usually happens in partnerships and in situations where the corporate veil is pierced. Anyway, you can go over these flashcards and you will find yourself being able to do that. Any questions? Okay, so you will be able to, Kent, you didn't have any questions either? You were here earlier. I knew you're still here. Did you have any questions? No questions. Okay, neither of you have any questions. Not tonight. You said not tonight. Save it for the next nights, right? Okay. So anyway, I'm glad I was able to help you. And so I'm going to give you a phrase that we've kind of talked about tonight. And um, anybody have any suggestions? See if you could, how good you are. Any guesses? That's pretty good. That's close. You're almost there. Anything else? Take off the limited. Partnership. That's it. I was going to do that one, but I changed my mind. Okay. But partnership. And that was the overall theme of most of the material that we covered tonight. So give me that word and you will get your points. So, so I'm going to say good night again. Let you guys know again that I apologize for falling a little bit behind. I'm normally getting week 2 done by last Friday or last Saturday actually. So I'm about 3 days off, but I'll get them out to you in the next day or so, and then you'll be able to see. Um, but I looked at some of them without grading them. They look pretty good. So anyway, I'm going to say good night to you guys, and I will see you next week. Yeah, yeah, we're all human, and you know, I can't go to Wizard to get my parts and stuff like that. And I'm 70 years old, so I gotta, as they say, I have to pace this thing. So anyway, I'm gonna go. Then I'm gonna take a peep at. Are either you guys in Minnesota? Either you guys in Minnesota? North Dakota? Okay. Kent, you're in North Carolina. Yeah, you're far away, Jeff. But yeah, I was looking at the White Sox playing the Twins, and down the left field line at the stadium, there's this big old Rasmussen College sign. Have you ever been to? Uh, well, let's see. I guess probably Jeff. Uh, you've been to Target Field. Yeah, okay. Well, they have, anyway, I saw it on the television and I says, oh, it says Rasmussen College. Well, pretty soon that sign's going to have to be changed because you guys are aware of the fact that beginning in not beginning, actually October, I think it's the 14th, we will be formally known as Rasmussen University. You're aware of that, right? Yeah, yeah, yep. And that actually on your, by the time you guys graduate, um, you will be receiving your degrees or diplomas. that say not Rasmussen College, but Rasmussen University. How cool is that? So very, 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 very nice and cool. All right, guys, I will see you next week. And stay safe. Enjoy your week and weekend and holiday weekend as well. I will still be, I have a lecture on Labor Day that I still be, I guess it's called Labor Day, so I'll still have to labor. So I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Have a good one.